Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Brian Robson, the Executive Clinical Director here at Healthcare Improvement Scotland. And welcome to this, the fifth in our exciting lineup of QI Connect WebEx series for 2016, the 24th since the series began. This series started from a request from our national clinical leads here in Healthcare Improvement Scotland to connect frontline clinicians interested in quality improvement with international leaders in the field of improvement. They asked that we make the sessions short, accessible and recorded to allow easy access at a time that suited them. And as you'll see, our QI Connect and QI Connectors have reached well beyond the clinical workforce. And before we go on, I'd like to pass you over to Jennifer. Good afternoon, Jennifer.
Thanks, Brian, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm just going to take you through a couple of very quick housekeeping slides on how to use WebEx. If you could please use the chat function that you see on the right-hand side of your screen to communicate, and I'll talk you through this in just a moment. If you have any technical difficulties, such as not being able to hear the presenter, or if you keep losing connection, then please message the event manager using the chat function, or if you call the number that you can see on the screen, so that's *0. And these sessions are designed to be a fun, interactive learning experience, so we really want to get your thoughts and ideas throughout the session. We encourage you to use the chat function to share any questions, comments and ideas throughout the talk, and there will be an opportunity for Q&A at the end of the session, but we really want to get some lively discussion going. So if you can please click on the chat speech bubble you can see circled on the screen there, and then type your message in the chat box at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, and then click Send. So as I say, we want this to be a really interactive session. We're delighted to be welcoming so many people from around the world to the session today. We just want to find out where you're all actually joining us from. So if you could just click on the pen icon, just there, the annotation icon, and then select the arrow. And then if you could just click on the map where you're joining us from today, that'd be great.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jennifer. It's great to see so many folks joining from across the UK, and I see Richard Phillips over in Canada. Welcome to you. Coming from all corners of the UK, including the Orkney Isles and up in Shetland also. Welcome to today's QI Connect. Thank you very much, Jennifer.
Thanks, Brian.
Now, QI Connect is now being connected in with by more than 420 organisations. So the reach is expanding every call, every session. Thank you very much for making those connections. Now it's time for the competition, and I know that everyone, all the QI connectors out there are keen for the competition. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask for you to use your little arrows again, and I'd like you to identify a flag of a particular country. The first person to get to that country wins an amazing prize. And the country today is Italy. Whoa! Gordon Black. Well done, Gordon. Gordon is the clinical lead in the primary care division up in Scottish Government. Welcome, Gordon, and thanks. You will win the amazing prize. I see that everybody else is now finding. Kathleen's finding Scotland, but everybody else is finding Italy. So well done, Gordon. Absolutely superb. And your prize today is a QI Connect mug. You're one of the few select international QI connectors with a QI Connect mug. Well done, Gordon. Now, I'm also delighted, as Jennifer said, to be expanding our reach even further. And when we started this series, we had one slide with the logos of the organisations that were joining QI Connect. We're now extending to 12 slides with amazing organisations from all over the world. And we're absolutely delighted to welcome you to the QI Connect series. And we're delighted that every territorial board and most of the special boards across Scotland are connecting in to QI Connect also, which is wonderful. We're also, as you know, always delighted to have our friends in the universities, and we now have 38 universities from across the world joining QI Connect. And the latest QI Connector to join is Qatar University. The logo is in the middle of this slide, and welcome to our friends in Qatar. And again, a special mention to the 24 new organisations from Canada, Holland, from Scotland, from New Zealand, from England, and from further afield. So welcome to you, and thank you for joining QI Connect. We're delighted to have you with us. And just to remind you that our sessions are all recorded, and that allows colleagues to use the recordings time and time again. And thanks to our friends in Koawatea in Middlemore in South Island, New Zealand, who started this trend for reuse of QI Connect recordings. And all those recordings can be easily found on the Healthcare Improvement Scotland website. We know that groups are getting together to watch and listen to the recordings and discuss them in teams, and we're absolutely delighted that this resource is being used so widely. And we're also delighted, as ever, to be in partnership with ISQA, the International Society for Quality, and they use the QI Connect series as an approved resource within the ISQA Fellowship Programme. We're absolutely delighted, and delighted also to have Peter Lachman, the new Chief Executive of ISQA, joining us in QI Connect. Welcome, Peter. And the small but perfectly formed QI Connect team, you've heard from Jennifer and from myself, and now you can see Olivia. Olivia's managing all of the registration, all of the resources, and the certification that you receive for joining QI Connect. Delighted to be working with such a wonderful team. And that brings us on to today's talk, and absolutely delighted that our questioner today is Joe Thompson. Joe is a Senior Programme Manager for the Measurement and Monitoring of Safety Programme, which is based on the Charles Vincent work from the Health Foundation, broadening our thinking in measurement and monitoring of safety. Welcome to Joe, and we'll hear from Joe later on the call. And please remember that we're using Twitter and tweeting as we're learning. That's the hashtag HISQIConnect, and you can follow us at HISQIConnect. And that brings us on to today's speaker. Our speaker today is a wonderful friend of QI Connect and a true inspiration and energy in the field of quality improvement. Maxine Power is currently the Director of Innovation and Improvement Science at Salford Royal, where she leads the Innovation Centre HALO. HALO works with improvement teams in Salford, in Greater Manchester, nationally across the UK, and internationally and globally. We're absolutely delighted to have Maxine with us today. Maxine was awarded a Health Foundation Quality Improvement Fellowship in 2006 and spent a year with the Institute for Healthcare Improvement in Boston and completed her Masters in Public Health at Harvard University. With more than 20 years as a clinical career as a speech and language therapist, Maxine was one of the few non-medical staff to be awarded the Medical Research Council Clinical Research Training Fellowship and completed her doctoral training in neurophysiology in 2001. And Maxine has been a wonderful friend, not just of QI Connect, but all of the improvers here in Scotland. So I'd like to welcome Maxine to the call.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for joining this wonderful call and this wonderful series of lectures. So for those of you who are here for the first time, I'm hoping you will enjoy this lecture. So as Brian said, I think one of the things that's really good about the QI Connect series is that the actual series does build. Now I think actually at some point you should probably be able to see me, but we might need to just click on our camera at this end. So I'm looking to Brian to give me a kind of thumbs up that you can see me out at this end.
You're on.
Am I on?
You are.
Excellent, really good. So as I said, welcome to this. And some of you will be thinking, I thought I came to a lecture on scale up. I want to scale up my improvement. That's the thing that's bugging everybody right now. Certainly when I go into rooms and talk to other people like yourselves, they're all saying to me, we seem to be able to do it here, but we just can't get it to scale. And I'm honestly quite kind of what should I say, quite intrigued by the number of times that I hear the word scale and pace. Scale and pace, scale and pace, like, you know, the kind of new hot topics, and it's really intriguing when we do that, I think we as change agents, as improvement scientists, have a whole kind of legacy of learning behind us, and I want to take some of today to actually go just back to basics, really. So many of you might think, oh yeah, I remember that, or gosh, yeah, I could go and have another look at that. But then I wanted to also take us beyond 2016 into the future and what we may possibly be able to use to scale up and spread into the future. And so at the end of the session we've got today, we've got roughly 30 minutes, I wanted to just show you a little case study of how we here in HALO have been thinking about how we might do scale up and spread a little bit differently. So in front of you, you'll see this slide says 25 years. Why does it say 25 years? Well, I guess 25 years is a little bit watershed for me. So I started work 25 years ago. And I'm interested in you guys on the call. So we always have a group of people who say, actually, I wasn't even born 25 years ago. So welcome to you guys. You are the digital natives, the new millennia, the people who are going to be essentially leading healthcare when Brian and I are both long gone. And then there are people who say, gosh, I was at school. What were you doing? Put it in the chat box. Let's have a look at what our people and our QI connectors were actually doing 25 years ago. But for me, why I think this is interesting is I just started work as a speech and language therapist in a small community setting in the middle of England. And one of the things that I can distinctly remember was that we would see children, and when we'd seen the children, we would have to write a report. So we would go to the filing cabinet and we would take out two pieces of paper and a piece of carbon paper. And in between the two pieces of paper, we would put the carbon paper and we would hand write the report. And then we would take the top copy of the report, fold it, and put it into an internal mail envelope. And that internal mail envelope went into a tray, which then got emptied 3 times a day by a little man who used to drive around the region, picking up all of the post in the internal mail envelope. And that was being replicated all through the world. So basically, I started work in the age of paper and pen. And at the same time as that was happening, we had Tim Berners-Lee and a group of colleagues busy building the first web client server. So that was happening coincident. And during my lifetime, during my work lifetime, and during the work lifetime of many of you, we have transitioned from pen and paper to computer and to web-based digital and media communications. And it's that transition that I want to grab hold of and kind of take stock of where we are in 2016. But then thinking about the speed of that change, 25 years in the grand scheme of things is nothing. What does that mean for the future? So just bear that little bit of context in mind. I think that what we're wanting you to do is join in the conversation. So Brian and the team have said we want you to put things in the comment box. Those of you who are tweeting, please use the hashtag because we are currently live blogging. So I've got Vicky sat at the side of me here. She's producing a live blog which you can track on the HALO website. So the HALO website address is there on the slide in front of you. It's www.halo, that's HAELO.org.uk. So if you go onto that site and click into events or latest, you'll see this information coming up. So please get involved. We want your input into the outputs of this session. So anything that you say, that I say that you think is controversial, or you'd like to unpack, or you think might be interesting to other people, this call is as much about you as it is about anything that I can say. So I've ticked off a few things that I want to talk about that I think might prompt some interesting debate, both on social media and in the calls later. And the first of them is this thing called the implementation fallacy. Now, some of you might have heard of this. This was a kind of new concept to me, but when people explained to me what it was, I kind of got it. So the implementation fallacy is the fact that people have had a belief system, which is if you just get the right idea, then the idea will spread. If you just get the right technology, the technology will spread. If you just get the right medical treatment, the medical treatment will spread. And actually, what we've learned from people who do diffusion science, and who've been doing this for almost 100 years now, is that is simply not true for most things. Okay, so early examples of this, you may have heard that in the British Navy back in the 1940s, basically we knew that scurvy was killing people. We knew it was killing people. It killed more people than world wars. And yet, actually, what was interesting was that in 1601, a guy called James Lancaster had done a little experiment where, on a trip to India, he decided that of the 4 ships that were sailing, he would actually give one of those ships, the people who were manning those ships, he would give them lemon juice. And the other 3 would go without. Now, what happened was, 2/3 of the way through the journey, the people on the ship who were having the lemon juice were completely well. Meanwhile, on the other 3 ships, what we had was a situation where 110 of 278 crewmen had died. In fact, it was so bad that he had to move people from his experimental ship onto his control ship in order to get through the journey to India. So that was in 1601, and people were still dying of scurvy in 1947. And what happened in the interval was the fact that there were several people who happened upon this idea and who weren't able to actually get this idea over the line. They replicated the findings, but we didn't reach a critical mass and momentum until hundreds of years later. And when you look into science generally, this is what you find. So we typically will say that a medical finding, which has solid research evidence, takes more than 17 years in most cases to actually arrive at the patient and be delivered in a highly reliable way. So this idea that if you just select the right thing and give people that information that this is a good thing, that they will just do it, has been proven time and time again to be wrong. And so for me, that brings me back to, okay, well, so this has to be some kind of skill set, some kind of science base that we need to understand better if we're wanting to effect change. And in fact, it sort of speaks to the essence of the improver, really. So what have we been doing? So many of us will have trained in our local environments, but I think we all owe a huge debt of gratitude to our friends and colleagues at the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. So for many, many, many years, they have been leading the way in thinking about spread. And we've got people like Rashad Masood, who now works overseas in countries that are developing, working on spread. Rashad, if you listen to Rashad's talk, he says, you have to think about spread from the beginning. Do not think about spread at the end. You have to design for spread from the outset. And we know that a core construct in our spread mindset has got to be who's going to lead. What does leadership look like? And into what social system are we actually spreading? So we know quite a lot about spread, and I think one of the things that's interesting about this area is that actually the science has changed quite a bit over the last decade. So 2 of the people who I am constantly referring to are 2 professors, one of them, both of them from the US, John Cotter, who's a professor from Harvard. And some of you will know that John Cotter essentially is a master of looking at how you get change to happen within and between organisations. And on the left-hand side of this slide, you can see that John Cotter essentially looked at two axes, the ability to innovate and the ability to execute. And he said, if you want to execute, then the hierarchical organisations, the hierarchical structures within organisations will serve you incredibly well. So you can start to use them to get change to happen, to actually pull a lever and implement. But if you want to innovate and you want to execute at the same time, you need a different set of levers. And he calls these the kind of substructure, the second operating system within an organisation. And when I read Cotter's work, the way that I think about this is that, you know, you walk into an organisation and somebody gives you the organisational chart, and then some way down the line you say to them, okay, but how does stuff get done around here? And you find that actually it isn't the people on the organisational chart that are at the top that are getting stuff done. It's this substructure of workings, of networks of people who can work together in a way that isn't articulated on the organisational chart. So Cotter said he believes change in organisations is kind of defined by the coming together of these hierarchical organisational structures with this second operating system of networks. And if leaders can liberate these second operating networks, which are often people at the sharp end, the delivery end, that they can get much more change happen much more quickly than they would if they just relied on either the traditional ones or, in fact, just the second operating systems themselves. So Cotter's brought a lot of, I think, new thinking to the field of spread and change. And, you know, I think it would be completely remiss of me. So sitting here at the side of me is this book, and it's got, you can see it's got little post-its in it. It's the best used book in my library by a golden mile, and this is the work of Everett Rogers. So Everett Rogers first started to think about diffusion of innovation, gosh, nearly 100 years ago now, and he basically is kind of my go-to person. He's my encyclopedia. And I think Everett Rogers taught us a couple of things which we sometimes need to think about really carefully when we're trying to get things to change and to change at scale. So the first thing he said was, and this is something that he's not necessarily that well known for, but he actually said, you need to understand the characteristics of the innovation that you are trying to introduce into a new social system. So what did he mean by that? Well, what he actually meant was you need to understand, is this something that people can relate to? Does it build on their lived experience, or does it really challenge and jar with their lived experience? Is this something that people have to kind of do this instead of the other thing, or could they test their way to sort of being confident that this is the thing for them? And what are the characteristics of this thing? How complex is it? How simple is it? How easy to understand is it? How difficult to understand is it? How far does this thing actually sit with the culture in which the innovation is being set? So, for example, I've just worked with the English NHS trying to introduce a concept called harm-free care, which actually is a concept that, for most people, is quite new. So we've worked to reduce harm pretty much in silos. So we reduce harm from pressure ulcers, we reduce harm from falls, we reduce harm from catheter-associated urinary tract infections. And our concept, our new concept was, well, what about if at the level of the individual, we try to eliminate all of those harms, so we don't actually have any of them. We call that concept harm-free care. Now, intuitively, that makes a lot of sense, but actually getting that idea to get traction was quite difficult because it kind of went against people's sort of general rule about how they thought about harm and how they thought about harm in healthcare. So quite an interesting thought process to go through when you're thinking about getting a new idea and taking it to a setting and getting it to scale. Is kind of, how complicated is this? Does it fit with people's worldview about what's happening now? And also, does it fit with the kind of culture of the current mindset, the prevailing belief system? And actually, if it doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you have to understand that it might take you longer. The second thing that Cotter, I think, really left us with, and interestingly, his last preface in his book was in 2014, and that was kind of a year after, just a year before he died. And he said, look, we've got this kind of normal distribution of people in the worlds we work in, and we need to understand that not only are they normally distributed for height and weight, but they're also normally distributed in terms of their appetite for change. And so essentially Rogers was kind of helped us to understand the characteristics of those people who are innovative, those people who kind of are more cautious. He called those people early adopters or the early majority. Those people who are kind of only going to do it if they see a peer or a friend or somebody that's relatable doing it, so the late majority. And then a group at the far end of the distribution curve called laggards, who he believed were resistant and would challenge change no matter what happened. And so these typologies of response to change aren't meant to box in an individual, but they're meant to describe behaviours that people will see when they start to try to get social systems to change. And this is a toolkit that we use all the time, and it's kind of the toolkit which has been the staple toolkit for us as improvement leaders. And so I guess just pausing at the end of this section, one of the things that it might be quite interesting for some of you to do is to have a look maybe back at some of that evidence, some of that science, and maybe fill some of those gaps in. And certainly for me, I'm constantly going back to these masters to respect the work that they've done. But I wanted to move on, and I wanted to move on to what I believe are the game changers. And just a little bit of tongue-in-cheek now, so back to our interaction. I want you to just look on your desks, if you're at your desk. I want you to look around you if you're not at your desk. And I want you to think about what is in front of you. So my guess is pretty much all of you will be sat in front of the computer. My guess is that pretty much all of you will have a phone within that far from where you are. And some of you may even have two, and some may even have three crazy phones. And actually, the game changer for my generation and for generations to come has been the internet and the World Wide Web. I think swiftly followed by the absolute sort of ascent of the smartphone. So what we have in our pockets is powered to the nth degree. And of course, what that's done is it's liberated communications between people. So 1.3 billion people using Facebook. I mean, what? How could that possibly happen? That is an incredible, incredible shift in the way that our lives are operating. So I've got a daughter who is 23, and she will say to me, Mum, how on earth did you manage without Facebook? Like, how did the world ever work? How did you know where anyone was? How did you know who was going out? You know, all those important things. And what did you do without Google? And the fact is that Google and Facebook are only 10 years old. They're 10 years old, and they have become absolutely pervasive in our world. So they're verbs now. We're going to Google it. That's how pervasive they are in society. So the question is, how much are we, as improvers, using the web and social media as a kind of platform, an accelerated platform? Because if you think back to Cotter and you think back to Rogers, what they said was that if you want to influence large numbers of people, then the way to do that is to get people like you to talk to people like you. And never before has there been an opportunity to do this like there is right now. Now, when I go and look at people who are leading improvement programs, I think increasing numbers of them are starting to use video, which is a very good thing. But there's a lot of paper in improvement, and my mission is to get rid of the paper from improvement. What are we doing writing all this stuff down? Because it's not what the next generation of change agents is going to use. It's not what works for change. So that's quite a controversial statement. I'm sure we'll get some stuff on the live blog about that. But why is it important to do this? Well, it's important to do this for several reasons. Now, a case study illustrates that. But the one thing I wanted to say was, it's important to do this because we are heading towards deal breakers, things that will completely disrupt everything we've ever understood about the way that our societies are working. So some of you will have heard of this thing called the Internet of Things. This is not mythology. This is essentially a way of bringing together lots of information and intelligence from remote devices. So they could be wearable devices, they could be environmental sensors, they could be things that track time, linked events. And when you think about the Internet of Things, it's a way of essentially developing a smart city, but it has such huge implications for knowledge exchange and for scale-up and for spread and for design. And actually, very few of my colleagues are thinking about this as they move towards thinking about scale-up. And it is the logical way to scale up. So let me give you an example. So in the future, and this is not the distant future, but the near future, we will have smart homes that essentially will be able to sense the weather, the climate in the environment. That will signal to your wardrobe. It will start to choose the clothes that you might want to choose for your day, that day, based on how relatable they are to the climate outside. And there will be a number of connected things which will allow you to switch on lights, set your shower. The thermostat will understand when you're getting up, when you're moving. It will start to accommodate you within your own home. So I think one of the things that we need to understand is that this is happening, and actually rather than replacing humans, it's enabling humans. And the question that I've got for you is, how could we use this to enable improvement, to get the message out, to get things to happen every time for every person, and to use it to improve people's health and their healthcare? So that's kind of a question. We are swiftly running out of time, I think. We probably have about 5 more minutes left to go. But what I wanted to do was kind of give you an example which doesn't talk about the Internet of Things. It goes back into something we've been doing here in Halo. And I think in the interest of time, we'll probably not show you this video, but what we'll do is we'll give you the link to it. So this is an example of where we've used social media to try to get a good idea out into the world. So this video that you see in front of you is an informational video, and it's been designed to actually help people coming into hospital to understand what the risks are and what they're being exposed to when they come into hospital. It's a little bit like an airline flight safety video, so what you can do to help yourself. And when we devised it, we did a huge launch in the UK, and what was really brilliant about it, because it was based on a web platform, we were able to track the utilisation, the views of the video. And actually one of the things that's really interesting is we used improvement science to track what was happening over time. And you can see here, these are the weekly views of the video, and you see the 2 spikes that you can see at the beginning. We can annotate those spikes. So the first was the launch, and the second was when I went off to a conference in Sweden, and we did a big promotional piece around video. So we can look at these data, and we can annotate them, and we can begin to understand when we make change happen, what is actually working and what seems to be influencing the behaviour of people out in the wider world in terms of utilisation of this video. The beauty of this is I'm not waiting for weeks or days for this information. It's coming through every day. So here in Halo, we're using web details, web information to think about how people are interacting with our materials, how they're learning about change and spread, and how we can track this is actually has a very low data collection depth. So I would strongly encourage you to think about how you can use social media, digital statistics, digital methods to actually start to get your spread, your improvements to spread. And actually, people say, well, you know, don't you just want it to happen in Salford? I'm like, why? Like, we're globally connected. People are going to take this away and they're going to improve it. That's how we've got the world's best break dancer and the world's best ballroom dancer, because they've watched one another and they've improved as they've gone. So why wouldn't improvers watch one another and improve as they go? So this is the kind of thing that I think we're into. If you are someone who believes that, you know, we've got a good solid science base, we've still got some challenges, we've got opportunities to use innovative ways of getting our message out and getting spread to happen, then I think you probably would like to come along and join us. We've got a conference that is running in November, on the 9th to the 11th of November, and the theme for that conference is Daring Greatly. And the reason it's daring greatly is because we're celebrating people who may not necessarily have achieved success every time they've gone onto the pitch, but guess what? They're actually on the pitch. So I just wanted to thank you for being on the pitch and for even considering thinking about scale up and spread in a different way. And I wish you all the best with your scale up and spread activities, and please keep us posted. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Maxine. That was terrific. And the chat box has been really, really wild. Maxine, we have a moment or two to watch the video if you want to watch the video.
Okay, all right, then why don't we do that?
Let's do that and try and cause a special cause spike.
Yeah.
Yeah, a peak. So Jennifer's just going to set that up just now, and we'll watch Maxine's video. Here we go.
Welcome to our hospital. While you're here, your safety is our priority. And if you follow these 8 simple steps, you can help keep yourself safe during your stay. To help prevent falls, please wear the hospital socks if provided, laced up or snug-fitting shoes or slippers with rubber soles. Use your usual walking aids, and if you need any assistance, tell us. To help prevent blood clots, wear your hospital stockings if you've been advised to, and move as often as you can. Try to do simple leg and ankle exercises, drink fluids as recommended, and take blood-thinning tablets or injections as advised. To prevent infection, wash your hands before and after visiting the toilet, and before all meals. Don't hesitate to ask our staff if they've washed their hands before any contact with you. Tell us if you have diarrhea or vomiting. If you have tubes or needles attached to you, ask staff why they are there and if you still need them. There's no need to be confused about your medicines. Tell us if you don't understand what your medicines are for or if you have an allergy. Talk to your doctor, nurse or pharmacist about any concerns you may have and ask about possible side effects. Pressure ulcers are not very nice, so if you can, try to keep mobile in bed and call us if you're uncomfortable. We are very happy to help you change position, and if necessary, we can provide you with a special mattress or cushion for support. Let us know if any of your personal information is wrong, like the name on your ID band, your address, your GP or your next of kin. Also tell us if you have any allergies, and we'll give you a red ID band. If you have any concerns, don't forget we are here to help you. Talk to us if you have any worries or questions about your treatment, or about what will happen when you leave hospital. Congratulations, you're leaving the hospital. But before you leave, make sure you have your discharge letter. You've got your medicines and they've been explained to you. You know who to contact if you have any questions or concerns, and you know when your next appointment is. If you need any more information on how to make your stay with us safe, read the booklet provided, or ask a member of staff.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And thanks very much, Maxine, for a stimulating talk. Now, we've got some questions coming in, Maxine, so I'll bring them to you just in a moment. But let's go to Joe Thompson. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Brian.
And you have a question for Maxine.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Maxine. Hi. So I'm the Programme Manager working on the Measurement and Monitoring of Safety framework with some of your colleagues in HALO and others across the UK. And as you know, the framework looks to shift from the focus on the past to look into the present and into the future. And you spoke a lot about the future and how that's going to change a lot in your talk, which was really interesting. And so I suppose my question, first question is around your tips for the aspiring or future improver, and drawing on all of your expertise, what would be your advice to them?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Joe. Thank you for that. So one of the things that we didn't get a chance to cover, which I think is something that everybody should understand, is that improvement is a bit of a contact sport. So we know, don't we, that the work that Everett Rogers did on the normal distribution curve, that even though someone might be in the later stages of a doctor category, they're not going to do that silently. They're often quite vocal about why this thing is not going to work here, or we've tried this before. You know, these are kind of common phrases that people come up with, and often people are using that to kind of, yes, to seek out more information, but kind of to grind you down. And I think as a new improver, that kind of got to me. I took it personally, and I think that's the first lesson, is that the science tells us not to take that personally, but to expect it. And actually, you know, when it happens, kind of have some strategies, have a bit of a toolkit that you can use to actually help people to come round and to start to think through these things. And don't let this sap your energy, because there is no right and wrong in this, and you know, lots of the time we are testing, trying, moving forward. And I have to say that after a little while, one of the most exciting things for me is to have a converted laggard. So I often say a converted laggard is worth 5 innovators, simply because they are so powerful in the change process. So I think I thought originally that it had to be me that convinced people that the change was a good idea, and therefore that would be how it worked. And actually, these people at the back end of the curve, if you can get them interested in understanding your change, they're so much more powerful than I could be, or anyone who's in the innovative category could be. So kind of understand it's not personal, use the science, and try to think about how you can get people on side. I think that would be my advice to the aspiring innovator. And seek out good support, you know, good mentorship, good peer support. It's really important. I think resilience is something that we don't talk about often in improvement, because people think that naturally improvement is a good thing and people will love it. In actual fact, it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And I think we have to be honest and recognise that, and support people that are entering into the profession, and get people to be really skilled and understand the science.
Thanks, Maxine. And so my second question actually really builds on that. And I was privileged to be on cohort 1 of our Scottish Improvement Leaders programme, and I know that I've got fellow skilled colleagues on the call, so I'll say hi to them. But throughout our journey, we learned about the challenges of improvement and discovered about we needed to be tenacious and resilient and good conveners and all of the things that you've just mentioned. And so thinking about the qualities that we know good improvers need to have, could you maybe think of your dream team of famous people that you would like to have on your improvement team, and why?
Well, so Joe, clearly you're clearly going to be on my dream team. And the guys in Scotland at QI Connect. So let me think. So there's a couple of famous people that are probably so blindingly obvious that everybody would have them on. They'd be like the fantasy dream team. So I think Alex Ferguson, so the Manchester United football manager, would be kind of my first choice. And the reason for that is that I think he genuinely understands the psychology of people and the psychology of change. So he's way, way more than a technician. He's a true leader of people and understands how you get people to change and how you get people to do things. I'm going to say this because this is, I met yesterday for the first time Professor Maxine Power, who I think is a friend of yours because she is NHS Highlands Chief Exec. And she was at the King's Club yesterday, and she did just a superb piece of oratory. It was beautiful oratory, is what I can describe it as. She told the NHS Highlands story, and she told us the journey that they've been on. And anyone who works with Elaine, I would honestly take my hat off to you because it was such a fantastic narrative about a journey. And I think you have to be good at storytelling to be a good change agent. You have to be authentic, you have to be real, you have to know what you are and who you are and how you connect with the agenda. So for me, Elaine is up there in that group of people who are genuinely authentic leaders of change. And we're probably a little bit tight on time, but if I could pick one more person, I'm going to pick somebody who's completely unexpected, but I would have my daughter. So Charlotte is 23, and she is a newly qualified nurse. And the reason I would pick her is because she would challenge me, really challenge me to think about whether what I was doing was the right thing and to think about people's responses to the way that new ideas were being introduced. And I think that concept of having challenge, of having difference, of having someone who can be a firm sounding board is really, really important when you're doing work that requires you to tackle tough stuff. So she's also a phenomenal storyteller, and I think because she's young, she brings something that is different from what I bring, and kind of celebrating difference in your team and really using people's assets to best effect and not putting square pegs into round holes, but allowing people to go absolutely to the voltage that they can give is, for me, what defines a great improvement leader. So team players, great leaders, great empathy, great understanding, all characteristics of what I would describe as the dream team. And of course I'd have Brian.
Thanks very much, Joe, for those questions, and thanks, Maxine. Maxine, the chat function has been going crazy, as has Twitter, of course, with all our friends, including Vicky down there at Halo, which is great. When you invited people to talk about what they were doing 25 years ago, some people like Olivia in the room here just scratched their head because Olivia, well, you weren't around 25 years ago. But others like Sasha Will, who's an improvement advisor at Scottish Government, was working in a bank. Richard Phillips from Canada with Alberta Health, he was finishing his social work training. Kathleen Thompson was who's currently a senior charge nurse at Greater Glasgow and Clyde, was a staff nurse on cardiac theatres, and so the list went on. However, I couldn't fail to call out Rob Cunney, who's a microbiologist at the HSE in the Republic of Ireland and an SPSP Cohort 7 fellow. Rob was in anaesthetic training at the time, and it will come as no surprise, those of you that have seen some of the SPSPs singing at the International Forum. Rob is the main protagonist there. You might be surprised to hear that he was in a punk rock band 25 years ago called The Ventilators. So you stimulated a lot of people to think back there, Maxine. However, let's go to some of the questions that are on the chat here. So Marilys Van Dyke, who's the innovation lead at Canada Alberta Health Services, Marilys says, we've had some resistance to creating a design and innovation lab in our large healthcare system. people feel that the basic improvement methods like the model for improvement and lean will suffice. How can we frame our interest in wanting to create an innovation unit? Any suggestions would be great. And how did you do it?
So thank you for that question. And I would have to say, so I'm going to be honest, why wouldn't I be? So we were in a very similar position about 3 years ago. So I started my career, I was actually in research, but my improvement career started in a hospital in the north of England called Salford, and we set a very, I think a very eloquent and very sort of admirable internal quality improvement directorate. And the machinery was working, we were training people, and like you know, we've got people who were skilled in lean, we've got people who were skilled in models for improvement, we could do PDSAs, statistical process control charts. You know, you kind of think, well, we've got it going on here, we've got a board that understands the strategy, and the organisation was motoring. And the question I asked was, what can we not do? What can we not do with the architecture that we've currently got? And the response that came back was, well, we're really struggling with the essentially reconfiguring pathways of care, where we're reliant upon multiple different organisations to come together and bring their people to the table. And so integration of services between primary and secondary and community care was a particularly hot topic, especially for frail older people. And we were constantly bumping up against language differences between people in different organisations, and we were bumping up against differences in the skills gradient. And so we said, well, in order for our whole system to move further faster, we're going to have to do something together. So we brought together, I convened a meeting of the senior leaders of 4 of our key organisations, including our local city council, so the local government officer. And I brought them in the room and said, so how does Salford do large-scale change? How do we do that together? And they described to me meetings where they all come together to talk about planning, and they described to me meetings where they all come together to talk about assurance. And I said, that's wonderful, but actually, you've told me what, and you've told me how you're going to lock the system. You haven't told me how you're going to change the system. How are you going to do this? And so it took me at least a year to get all those people even understanding the shared understanding of what improvement was. And I would hope I'd never have to go through that. It was pretty ugly, actually. But when they got it, we started to do some work together. And when they got it, they soon saw that actually there was real value in moving forward together as a health economy. So what we've done is we've nested Halo inside the health economy partners, and they all have a joint share in it. They all have a say in how it operates. And that's allowed us to kind of open conversations with partners around things like, how do we build capability? What programs of work are we going to focus on? How do we lead this? What does the information look like that we're using? And it isn't just about information in one organisation, it's about information across the system. So we have I think, a kind of an integrator role. It's not perfect, but it's integrating kind of the delivery of change. And what I would say to you is I think I spotted an opportunity of something that was missing, that we couldn't do with the current system. And I think you've got to find that opportunity and really kind of leverage it and exploit it to your own kind of ends. And in that, kind of convince people that this is a solution to the problem that they've got. And, you know, who knows what the problem is that they've got, but I would suggest that kind of most people at the moment are trying to improve quality, either contain or reduce cost. And what is it that we can do to actually help them on that, with that agenda? So that kind of is where we went to. In terms of advice, what advice would I give you? It's kind of stick in there. And what you're saying about people believing that they've got the skills required is a little bit, I make the analogy, it's like everyone can drive, you know, so they all think that they can be driving instructors. and actually it's a very different skill set. Like, everyone has been to school, therefore they can all be teachers. So everyone who's been involved in an improvement project can be an improvement advisor, kind of not true. So get really good, I think, at explaining what the skill set is and where we might have some gaps, because every system, no matter where you go, has got gaps. So good luck with that, and if you want more information, then contact us. We'd be really pleased to have a conversation with you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. I hope that's of help over in Canada. We had a lot of chat about the laggards. We had some comments from Jean Donaldson, the Associate Nurse Director in NHS Lanarkshire, from Derek Barron, the Associate Nurse Director in the NHS and the Community Health Partnership in Ayrshire and Arran, and also from Fiona Gibson, Head of Clinical Governance and Risk at NHS Tayside, and all talking about how do you actually involve the laggards and bring them along with you. Suzette Woodward from Sign Up to Safety campaign says some people say we should ignore the laggards because they will either leave or come on board because they have to rather than they want to. What are your thoughts about bringing the laggards on board?
Yeah, so first rule for me is it's really tricky, but time you've got to go with the energy. So if I have an 80-20 rule. 80% of your time, attention, focus has got to be with people who have a positive attitude to change. And so just thinking about, right, okay, is this person or this group of people sucking energy that means that I can't spend time with the people who are willing to do the change? That's the first kind of, let's just have a think about how we do this. And sometimes you do have to then say, well, no, this is sucking too much energy, I'm going to have to let it go. Just let it go and breathe. Because actually, once these guys get momentum, they will become all-encompassing, they will become infectious. So there's a bit of a balance to be struck, and my tactics for dealing with laggards is to give them voice, because often what you find is they have strong opinions, they're just different from the opinions that maybe are in the room or the direction of travel that you thought you might want to go in. And I can actually say I've changed quite a few programs that I've been intending to run based on intervention from people that might be classed as laggards, and it's actually improved the program considerably. So I think accepting that whilst it might not be easy, sort of taking a breath, it's not personal, but are they actually saying something that we should be including here? Have they got a point? Are they trying to slow us down for a reason? So listening, really important with laggards. And I think actually, for a lot of them, what they're wanting is to be heard. They're wanting their previous work to be acknowledged. They're wanting to be respected if they've got academic papers in the field or they've done a lot of work in this area. And I'm trying to find out get behind that behaviour and think, well, what's driving this behaviour? And then some of them, and I think it's an absolutely tiny, tiny, tiny minority. Some of them are truly just disruptive, and no matter what you do, they're going to be disruptive. They'll always be disruptive. Now, I think it depends on where you are in your organisation. So this organisation that I work in, that becomes a values issue. As soon as we've got more people, or the majority of people, operating to one model, and somebody resisting change, digging their heels in, that becomes an alignment and a values issue, and that then gets dealt with through our human resources department. After a period of time, everybody's given a chance. In fact, everybody's given 2 or 3 chances, but eventually you have to have some teeth with your improvements. If you've not got an organisational frame that you're working in, so maybe you're working on more of a distributed network structure, I think you've got no choice but to build so much noise around success that drowns out the resistors. And, you know, despite the fact that I've worked in England on the harm-free care programme for more than 5 years now, we have a very loud volume voice from detractors. And we're constantly trying to go with the flow and understand what their issues are and address their issues. And I think actually, you know, it's just kind of part of the change. and accepting it that you're going to have to continue to strategize around this kind of 1 to 2% of the population, and that's part of the deal, but not letting it stop you. Be resilient, be absolutely committed to goal, and actually, you know, take people with you who've got a positive attitude, who want to make a bigger difference in the world. And there's 100 and odd of them on this call, so you're not on your own.
Brilliant. And on that positive note, Maxine, I'd like to thank you very much. Again, thanks to Suzette for additional comments about loving change and loving the work, and great comments and contributions from Alistair Philp, Improvement Advisor at Scottish Government, who quotes Machiavelli for folks that want to study why change is hard, and also Arvind Varaya, who's an NHS Lothian consultant and works with Healthcare Improvement Scotland as a national clinical lead for medicine safety, who quotes the Holy Trinity of Hinduism, which are the creator, the preserver, and the destroyer. We need all three. So on that note, Maxine, thank you so much for a wonderful talk today. And I'll just remind everyone that Derek Feely is the Chief Executive of the Institute for Healthcare Improvement, and he will be giving the QI Connect talk on the 30th of June, 4 to 5 p.m. British Summer Time. Derek Feely, previous Chief Executive and Director General here in Scotland, so wonderful to have Derek come home over the web. And if there was a dream team for QI Connectors, this is our dream team for 2016. So you see Derek on that lineup, and you can see followed by Jean Nelson in July, and you see the list going on. We're absolutely delighted with the connections that are made all over the world here. Please follow us on HIS QI Connect. Please try and get a spike in the Halo video usage, a special cause variation. And thank you all very much for joining QI Connect. Thank you and goodbye.